Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching India Tonight with me, Sumita, Kareer, and we keep our focus intact on developments in the Middle East. The Iran-Israel war has entered its seventh day, and no solution yet is in sight. In fact, if anything, hostilities between the two sides are only growing after a missile from Iran hit a hospital in Israel. Defense minister of the country said that Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei cannot continue to exist. Iran's supreme leader then took to social media to hit back and criticized the United States' intervention in the matter, and he said, and I quote, "American friends of Israel are helping the so-called Zionist state is a sign that Israel is weak." There are casualties, remember, on both the sides, and after a health facility was struck, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu commented, and I quote, "All of Israel is paying a price, and it is reminiscent of the Blitz spirit of the British people." Meanwhile, beyond the United States' involvement, now talks are on between Iran. They will happen, in fact, between Iran, the United Kingdom, Germany, France, and other European Union members. They are planned for tomorrow in Switzerland. In fact, they're happening in consultation with the Trump administration, according to several reports. So the question is, what does all this mean in the context of the Israel-Iran war? And most importantly, what is the game plan of the United States? To decode those and some of the other questions, I'm now joined by Major General retired Gigi Dwivedi. He's also a global strategist and defense expert. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on ET Now. My first question to you, also heard me saying and speaking about the statement that the Iranian Supreme Leader stated that it is a sign of weakness. I want to get your thoughts on that statement first. And secondly, what is stopping Israel and Iran from going all out?
Well, first and foremost, Sumita, the wars are fought with certain strategic aims and objectives. And until they are realized, the wars generally don't stop. Now, Israel has its capability, and they have done fair amount of destruction. And to achieve their two main aims, one was the crippling of the Iranian nuclear capability, and secondly, decapacitating their leadership. So, to that extent, I think they have achieved fair amount. They have knocked off about 20 of the top generals of the Iranian armed forces, and they also caused a high degree of damage to the nuclear installation. But, you know, in this world, you don't fight alone. You always have allies and friends, and that is why the alliances are made. And there's a very strong alliance between America and Israel. So therefore, in such situations, your allies, friends always pitch in. And America also has a very common agenda as far as Israel is concerned. I mean, as far as Iran is concerned. And that is to ensure that weak Iran suits them. And secondly, they would like to have a regime which is favorable to America, because today the major focus is on the Indo-Pacific. And Iran is today in the Chinese camp. And China is the main adversary of America. So America would like to have a regime which is favorable to Americans and which can also push further their agenda in the Indo-Pacific. So the point I'm trying to make is, it's not Iran is weak, but it's always when allies come together, your combat potential gets compounded. And there are certain limitations, of course, with Iran, because with Israel, that they are not able to hit that deep where the centrifuge, processes are there. So therefore, I think America will like to help them out, and it is possible that America would step in with those weapons with which they can hit deeper and destroy the Iranian nuclear assets. Sumita.
Right, and that's perhaps what's giving Israel the confidence with respect to the saber rattling, and of course the commentary that it's been making with, particularly with respect to knocking out the Khamenei. But let me talk to you about, the point about the United States involvement in this war. This definitely is a presidency-defining decision for President Trump. So what are the military options that the United States could be considering at the moment? Several reports are stating that he's vetoed. Is it going to be precision strikes or limited attacks, or perhaps an all-out expanded set of attacks?
Absolutely, Sumita. I think the Americans' involvement will be limited. It will not be all out, I would say, it will not be all out war, because there's no need for that. Mostly it is the aerial warfare that is going on. Neither America nor Israel share the borders. So therefore, they will only complement the effort which is already on through Israelis, they will go for limited precision strikes and to take out those targets which Israelis are not able to take it out. And end aim is to cripple Iranian capability, bring Iran on the knees, and have a some kind of agreement which is favorable to both, America and Israel, and have a favorable regime in Iran, so that that regime toes the American line and is in American camp. So you're right, absolutely. I think that option is, that's what is the most logical option. Go for limited strike, cause further damage to Iran, and set a stage for the regime change. And ultimately, that's where I think this conflict will end. Sumita.
Right. So when you talk about a limited strike, but will that be enough to knock out Iran's ability to continue with its nuclear program, given the fact that that's essentially what the United States is vehemently against, and that's what Israel is at least perceivably fighting against?
Well, you see, Iran has the capability, but that capability in this current scenario, it is not of much use because they have the very strong ground forces. But the war is not on the ground, war is in the air. And as far as air is concerned, Israelis have definite edge over Iranians. The Iranian Air Force is very obsolete. They have got MiG-29, which is not even the fourth generation aircraft. They have got Su-24, which are obsolete. So therefore, this aerial war is the one by one who has the aerial domination. So Israel has created the aerial domination. Right. They have been able to knock out the air defense capability of Iran. And that's why they are able to cause considerable damage. And once America comes in for precision strike, they will take out those targets which are still holding on. And the point is that Iran cannot sustain the American precision strikes. That will be very damaging. And it's quite possible that they'll take out the supreme leader as well, because it has been stated in no uncertain terms by President Trump that either you surrender unconditionally, and as far as Netanyahu also said that taking out supreme leader is is an option on the table. So point I think I'm trying to make is that in time to come we'll see America would step in most likely through the precision strike. They will take out even the political leadership, so that there is a chaos in Iran. And that set the stage for the regime change. But more importantly, first aim is military aim, that is to incapacitate Iran. And second is political aim, that is to go for the regime change. Sumita.
Right. So I'm going to come to that military plan and, of course, what, Iran's strategy going to be and, what its retaliation strategy will be. But let me come to that political angle that you say that the United States is essentially looking at. Israel has stated it in as many words as well. But what are going to be the pitfalls in case there is a regime change? Because remember, this is something that, the previous administrations tried with Iraq, but today's situation is vastly different from what happened in 2003. And of course, like you rightly stated, that the United States, well, its main target is China. And of course, it has to keep that focus on Indo-Pacific.
Absolutely, Sumita. Point is this, that we need to look at in two dimensions. One is purely Iran, Israel, and second is in the regional context. The first is that how does the regime change come about? That playbook of Iraq is not going to work because that didn't succeed. So therefore, they have to do internal kind of dynamics so that there are internal forces which actually come to the fore. But right now, there are no specific, I would say, either the person or the organization. So I'm sure some work will have to be done, and possibly the previous Shah, his son, is one who is actually America counted upon. But this political process is going to take time. But first and foremost is to win the military war and then set the political stage. And that, any uprising or any revolution or any regime change is a process. It doesn't happen with the, press of the button. It takes a little time, and that, environment has to be created. But I am sure that is the second, political aim is that to have a favorable regime in Iran. And, in any organization, there are people who are with the government, there are people who are against the government. As indications are that the control of these, religious leaders or theoretic control is only on the segment of the population which is more
Right,
in
sir.
the rural areas, whereas in urban area people want to be liberated from the regime. They have the aspirations, so therefore that will have to be exploited because these educated people actually don't come on the streets, but it is only
Right,
the
sir.
rural people who are influenced by the religious teachers who are actually a major component. So
Yes.
this will have to be played out, but I think this
Yes.
is the broad strategy,
Yes.
but it's a work in progress. But first win the military war, and then I suppose come to the political dimensions, Sumita.
Right, sir. So let me come to that, military dimension that you were talking about. We've spoken about Israel and, how it could perhaps retaliate, the United States and the options that it has, primarily three. And you state that it's going to be a limited strike if at all the president decides to go all out against Iran. But what response does Iran have in its arsenal against Israel? And what about Iran's proxies? We're given to understand that they have gotten weakened over time. Is that correct? Give us an understanding of these 2 points, sir.
Absolutely. If you understand the strategy of Iran, it is never to fight directly or openly either against Israel or against America. But it doesn't have the capability. So what you do, you go in for proxy war. And there are three major groups which were the proxies of Iran. One is the Hamas. Saw from 7th October 23, they came in a big way and they have a hold on Gaza. Second proxy is Houthis, who are very active in Yemen. And third proxies are Hezbollah, who are basically on the Lebanon border. So these three proxies have been playing quite I think, their
Yes.
cards well, and they have taken heavy toll of Israelis. Israelis' hands were full. Now the point is, how do you defeat then the proxy war? Proxy wars cannot possibly be defeated by proxies. Then you have to go for the conventional war. And you have to hit who is the mastermind. After the mastermind of the Houthis, Hezbollah, or Hamas are not the local leaders. It is all being orchestrated from Iran. So therefore, if you see the source of power or source where it is being orchestrated, that's why Iran. And that's why
Right,
they
sir.
went in for Iran, because Iran thought that it can continue with these proxies and keep the Israelis amused. Now that calculation has gone wrong. And the second point is what other cards Iran has. See, Iran has a good arsenal of long-range missiles, which are working well because they have been able to cause certain amount of damage and penetrate
Right,
the
sir.
Israelis' air defense and also the air dome. So they have about 3,000 of the
Right, sir.
missiles. And out of them, they must have fired about 1,000,
Right.
but they still have 2,000. But not to forget, behind Iran also, there are two major powers, Russia and China. And incidentally, I was defense attaché in China for 3 years and also in North Korea. So there's a fair amount of give and take between China, North Korea, and Iran. So they will not let Iran fall short of missiles. I'm sure they will be able to transport them. And as it is, some ships are seen. And you know what happened in Op Sindoor. The overnight, the Chinese were able to push in PL-15
Right, sir.
missiles, which actually changed the complete dynamics of Op Sindoor.
Yes.
So the point I'm trying to make is that they have the capacity, but one point I want to make, that Russia and China will not let Iran actually come on the news so quickly until their internal forces within Iran itself. They will ensure that
Yes.
as far as the supply of arsenal, equipment,
Yes, sir.
and ammunition concerned, that will be done. But ultimately, Sumita, wars are not won on the battlefield. Wars are
Right,
won in
sir.
the minds of the leaders. So if the leaders give up, I think Iran will go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, sir. But when you talk about these military options and the fact that, China and Russia are going to come to the aid of Iran, then in that scenario, if it ever comes to that, and we do hope that it doesn't, but if it ever comes to that, what are going to be Iran's military options against Israel? And give us a list of 3 strategic targets for Iran.
Well, Iran targets, basically, they have been trying to hit their military targets, but they ended up hitting a hospital that in Soroka. And they have hit the, couple of other targets, but they have not been able to. They hit Haifa, and Haifa there was a refinery. But I think as far as Iran is concerned, they will hit the logistic infrastructure and cause civilian casualties, Sumita. One must understand that Israelis are very averse to the civilian casualties, and that actually affect the psyche of the nation. And they cannot take very heavy casualty. Firstly, the population is very limited, and secondly, it has a huge psychological impact. So Israeli will like to hit as many civilian targets as possible, because hitting military target is not going to get that kind of dividend as they will get from the civilian casualties, and that's what will be very difficult for Israelis to sustain. And secondly, how much help Russia or China will give. See, Russia hands are full in Ukraine, and there's some kind of understanding between Putin and Trump. Trump is very sympathetic to Putin, so I am sure Putin will not step in directly. There could be some understanding that Trump, you leave me alone in Ukraine, and I leave you alone in Iran. That's some kind of of vivendi may be there. But Chinese could be helping much more, because they will lose a hold on Iran, and Iran is a very important country. If you look at Indo-Pacific, they have invested huge amount of money, Chinese in Iran. So again, Chinese are not the guys who will ever step in directly. They have enough at hands in Taiwan, South China Sea, East China Sea, and as I said, I spent good sort of years in in China, and I was commanded my formation against them. So I know their mind very well, that they will give all the help short of actually stepping in directly. So Iran options are limited, cause as many casualties to civilians in Israel, and at the same time keep the pot boiling or keep firing until I think some good things happen, which are not likely to actually.
Right, sir.
Yes, Sumita.
Right, sir. Just one final question, because we're completely out of time, and if you could wrap that up in a few seconds. So we're also given to understand from several reports that European leaders are expected to have a meeting with Iranian officials. But the question is, what leverage do they have, and how unified are they, all of these European leaders, in their stance towards Iran?
They have no leverage. Everything is hands of Trump. Trump is the person who calls the shot. He doesn't listen to anyone. He exactly does what he wants to do. So therefore, it's Trump who will decide the fate of Iran along with Israel. Europeans are only what we call it the diplomatic calisthenics. They just keep themselves busy. UN is defunct, and these people are just only a satisfaction. But at the end of it, it is Mr. Trump who matters. Yes, Sumit.
Absolutely, sir. It's Mr. Trump who really matters. And of course, we'll have to see what his strategy is going to be. Is he going to escalate these attacks? Or will the intervention of the European leaders, of course, through him, that is going to do the job for him, at least for now? Well, thank you very much, sir, for joining us here and sharing your analysis with us.
Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, it's time now for us to step into a very short break. But don't go anywhere. We have lots more lined up on the other side of this very short break.